So the question with our Mozart program is, how many Mozart symphonies do we have in the program, one or two? And I think it's safe to say, at least as far as we know, that there's only one. There's another Mozart symphony on the program, which is number 37. But as we have found out, Mozart wrote only the introduction to the first movement of that symphony, and the rest of the symphony was actually composed by Michael Haydn. Now, for me, the question is always, can you tell if the genius Mozart actually wrote that symphony or if it was someone else? And if you can't, what does that mean? And that's kind of interesting to me because it challenges your ears, trying to figure out, okay, this is Mozart, this is not Mozart, this is Haydn, and also then you kind of start thinking about, okay, what makes Mozart so special? It can be an experience in many different ways, depending on how willing you have to open ears, to have an open mind, and also what kind of that means to you to hear these symphonies back to back. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting experience for everybody. Benjamin Beilman, our violin soloist for the Mozart Concerto No. 5. He is just one of the outstanding violinists who have all the potential to become one of the very, very few absolute top violinists of the world. At a recent performance of his, the audience could not restrain themselves to stand up and applaud and give a standing ovation after the first movement. Or most of them know, oh, I'm not supposed to clap. They definitely know not to give a standing ovation after the first movement, and they still do it. That means to me that this is an artist of a very, very special quality. Jakub Ciupinski is a young Polish composer. He lives in New York. He studied at Juilliard. And he's an interesting guy because he also works with computers, as do many living composers, trying to figure out how to include new instruments, if you want. And he actually created his own instrument. It's based on the theremin, but it's hooked up to a computer, and depending on your hand and arm movements, pitch change. And he's also part of a group of young composers and performers who kind of improvise, which is very rare these days with classical composers and classical musicians. And the name street prayer may be also a little bit misleading. It's not really a religious prayer, but I think it's more the idea of repeating one phrase again and again. It starts with one flute, and then two, and then three, and then he adds instruments, so it has a nice flow, and the music gets bigger and bigger towards the end. This is very catchy music.